Hi students, in the previous classes I explained about functions of ecosystem. In that I completed productivity and decomposition. Today also I am going to explain one more function of ecosystem, that is nutrient cycling, or it is also called as bio geochemical cycle. Let us first of all understand what is the meaning of this biogeochemical cycle or nutrient cycle. And the meaning is bio means living components, biotic components like animals and also human beings and also microbes. So this is the meaning of bio means living organisms. Now, the next part is geo. Geo means it may be rock, or it may be soil, or it may be water. Like this abiotic components, they comes under this geo. Whereas chemicals means these are the mineral nutrients that are present in this atmosphere, in this environment. That is called as chemical. So this cyclic movements of the chemicals, again I am telling you, the cyclic movement of the chemicals, that means mineral nutrients, from bio to geo, and again from geo to bio, that means from biotic components to abiotic components, and again abiotic components to biotic components. Then this process of cycling of these mineral nutrients, that only we are calling it as nutrient cycling or biogeochemical cycling. To make you a little more clear, I will take a very simple example. Now let us take one herbivore is there. Let's take the example cow. If you take this cow, it feeds on the plant or its plant parts whole. Sometimes these herbivores cannot be able to consume the whole plant, because sometimes the plant, it is a tree. In that case it takes the part of this plant like leaves. So when it is feeding on this plant, it is a producer, because it is an autotroph. It has a ability to trap the sunlight and participate in the vital mechanism called photosynthesis, and it can be able to prepare its own food material. And I clearly told in the previous classes also, the organism which has ability to prepare its own food material, that is called as autotroph. Hope you remember. Now plant, it is producer. Now the food, it is going from producer to this herbivore. And here the herbivore, it is, I have taken the example, this cow. Now when the cow, it is feeding on it, now the food, it enters into its digestive tract, and after that it starts digesting. And how much ever nutrients it wanted for its body maintenance, that will be absorbed into its circulatory system, and then it is passed on into the cells, and then it participate in the respiration, and it produces some energy so that it can be able to maintain its life. But some leftover food, it will be excreted out. When this leftover food, when it is excreting out, obviously this particular excretory waste material, it will be decomposed by certain microorganisms, certain decomposers. When they are decomposing this particular excreta, obviously some nutrients they will take, and some nutrients which will be again dissolved into the soil or water. Now again, when the plant, it is participating in the photosynthesis, it again absorbs this nutrients which are dissolved in the soil. That means now what happened, the nutrients, it is absorbed by the plants from the soil. Now soil, sometimes water also. Now soil and water, see I mentioned it is geo, it entered into the producer, that means plant. Now what is plant, it is a biotic. Now again it entered into some consumer, of course primary consumer, that is herbivore. And then it is entering into the next level, that is a decomposer. Now plant, in this example what I have taken, plant is a biotic. Now this cow is also biotic, and decomposes, that means microorganisms are also biotic. Now by the decomposition it entered into the soil. Now the soil is what? Abiotic. Now again from the soil these plants are absorbing these nutrients. So that means here exchange is clearly I showed. Am I correct or not? So that only I am telling biogeochemical means this constant exchange in the atmosphere. There must be a constant exchange of these nutrients, then only this earth globe can be maintained. For example, just imagine all the organisms are eating food, that means they are taking the nutrients, but no organism is releasing out. One day will come, this earth it is completely deprived of these nutrients, and this earth when it gets completely deprived of the nutrients, there is no life. Even the organisms which are living also they will die. Hope you are understanding. That means this cycling must be there. That is the reason why the minerals are exchanging. There is a continuous exchange established between this biotic and also abiotic components. So hope you understand what is the clear meaning of biogeochemical cycles. So how to define this biogeochemical cycles, I think by now only you must have understood, but still again I am telling you, there is the sorry a biogeochemicals a chemical cycle can be defined as the process of constant exchange of the mineral nutrients from biotic to abiotic and also vice versa. This process is called as biogeochemical cycle or nutrient cycle. Hope you understand the definition of the nutrient cycle. Now let us take what are these types of this nutrient cycle. There are actually two types of nutrient cycles. The first one it is gaseous cycle, and the next one is sedentary cycle. First of all we'll know the meaning of the gaseous and sedentary cycles, and then we'll take the examples of this. In gaseous cycle, the reservoir is atmosphere or hydrosphere. So the nutrient cycle in which the atmosphere or hydrosphere is acting as the source, that means reservoir, and all these particular cycles are called as gaseous cycle. I'll tell you an example, I'm sorry, three four examples, then obviously we'll understand. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and also oxygen cycles. So in all these cycles what is acting as a reservoir? This air or water. That is the reason why this carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and oxygen as the reservoir of these cycles is either atmosphere or hydrosphere. That's why they are called as gaseous cycle, where I have taken four examples: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. But you need not to read. That means I am not going to explain all these four cycles. The reason is in our syllabus only carbon cycle is there and nitrogen cycle is there. But even at today's class, I am not again explaining this nitrogen cycle. The reason behind it, you must be knowing it, because the nitrogen cycle we already explained detailedly in your mineral nutrition chapter. So those who forget, again just go through it, you will understand the nitrogen cycle. But in case if you forgot what is a nitrogen cycle, immediately you message me and I'll make a small video on this nitrogen cycle also. Okay, so no hesitation, please don't hesitate to ask me any doubt. So that means clearly I am telling today's class I am going to explain about only carbon cycle. Though nitrogen cycle it is present in our syllabus, as we already completed it, I am not taking this topic. Now the second one, what is that? Sedentary cycle, where the reservoir of this cycle is earth's crust. If earth, that means lithosphere, is acting as a reservoir, and this type of cycle is nothing but sedentary cycle. For this also a few examples I took: phosphorus cycle and sulfur cycle and calcium cycle, and these cycles are called as sedentary cycles. Again here also we need not to read the sulfur and calcium cycle, because in our syllabus only phosphorus cycle it is there. That means today's class I am clearly telling we are going to read only carbon cycle and phosphorus cycle. And in our syllabus, when it comes to our syllabus, only three cycles we need to read: carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and phosphorus cycle. That means indirectly I'm telling you one thing: when I am taking exam on ecosystem, I will ask nitrogen cycle questions also. So there in mineral nutrition, you please read it and try to recollect it. Hope you understand. Now let us take the first cycle, that is gaseous cycle. For that I am taking carbon cycle. Now this is carbon cycle. Before we enter into the concept, first of all we'll understand what is the source of the carbon cycle, then we'll slowly enter into the cycle. Now the source of this carbon is atmosphere. How the carbon it entered into atmosphere? Carbon is entering into the atmosphere in form of carbon dioxide. How? By the respiration of plants and animals, and by the burning of fossil fuels. For example, you are using some vehicle like a car or a bike, so obviously you are using some petrol or sometimes diesel. That means when this petrol and diesel, these fossil fuels are oxidizing, obviously the carbon dioxide it is released into the atmosphere, and also it is released into the atmosphere as methane by this rice fields. That's why I used to tell, even rice crops also, they are responsible for global warming. Whereas the percentage of this carbon dioxide in atmosphere is 0.03 percentage. By listening this only, most of you must have confused what I am telling. I am telling this many sources, through this many sources carbon dioxide it is entered into the atmosphere, but I am telling the percentage of the carbon dioxide is 0.03. How? Somewhere the link it is missing. Did you notice it or not? These are the ways by which the carbon dioxide it is entered into the atmosphere, but the percentage is 0.03. That means very negligible. How it is possible? This is a very important question that I am answering now. When the carbon it is released into the atmosphere has ability to maintain only 0.03 percentage, and the remaining amount of the carbon dioxide it will be taken by the water. That means oceans. That is the reason why I clearly mentioned the main reservoir of carbon is ocean. That's why oceans are called as carbon sinks. Please understand and also remember this point, because it will be asked in your NEET. What are carbon sinks? Then you should be able to answer ocean is the best carbon sink, because carbon has a tendency here. Why it is happening also you need to understand. Otherwise confusion still continues. The reason behind storing it in the ocean is carbon has a tendency to absorb the heat, and when the carbon it is absorbing the heat, it can be able to maintain the warmth of this particular earth globe. That means it is having capacity to maintain the earth's temperature. Now if more carbon is released and that carbon it is present in the atmosphere itself, then what happens? More heat it will be absorbed by the carbon. That means the earth it becomes more heaten up, and when the earth it is getting more heaten up due to the more carbon dioxide, then that is called as a global warming. That means carbon dioxide is very much required gas of the atmosphere, which can be able to maintain the earth's atmosphere, earth's temperature. So that effect it is called as a greenhouse effect. Please remember, greenhouse effect means the ability of the earth globe to maintain its temperature by this carbon is called as greenhouse effect. Now too much is not good for anything, so here that same idiom will be applied here. So too much of carbon, then obviously too much of absorption of the heat. If too much absorption of the heat, too much temperature it will be raised in the atmosphere, that means earth globe, it becomes heated up, and that results in global warming, which it leads to a disastrous effect called as melting of the polar ice caps, so that the seasonal variations won't be proper, and you can't get the proper rainfall, and you can't get the proper winter, and you can't get the proper summer, and throughout the year you feel like it is summer only. But remaining seasons are also important for us, because flowering of many plants, they takes place in winter season, or and germination of many plants, it takes place in rainy season. For example, rains are not there, so how the plants will germinate? So only summer means complete exhausting of this particular water from the earth's crust takes place. So it's a dangerous effect. So carbon is having the tendency to absorb the heat. To maintain this, excess carbon must not be there. So to do that, the excess of the carbon, it will be taken, it will be absorbed by the ocean in form of carbonates and bicarbonates. Hope you understand. So sometimes what happens, the carbon will be deprived in the atmosphere, and again this carbonates and bicarbonates disassociate and releases this carbon dioxide again into the atmosphere. That means this is a cyclic process. So the more carbon, it is absorbed by the ocean in form of carbonates and bicarbonates. Now if the carbon dioxide is less than 0.03, and again these bicarbonates and carbonates, they disassociate and again makes the percentage of this carbon cycle carbon dioxide into 0.03. So this is how our atmosphere is maintaining the carbon percentage. Hope I think I explained you clearly, but still if you have doubts, you please ask me. So what is the essence of my teaching till now? Carbon, it won't be present in excess in the atmosphere due to the tendency to absorb the heat. So the excess carbon, it is absorbed by the water, that means oceans, I mean here oceans. That's why ocean is considered as carbon sink. Hope you understand. Whereas carbon, it is present in the lithosphere, that means earth, in form of coal and petroleum. So these are the sources of the carbon. Now, what are the functions of the carbon? This at least I need not to tell you. Every one of us know. This is a very simple thing. Carbon is a part and parcel of all the biomolecules that are present in your body. In your body, any body, you take any organism's body, it is made up of cell. That's why cell, it is considered as the basic unit of the living organism, the fundamental unit of life. So now let us take the cell. You take just only one cell. If you try to analyze the composition of the cell again, it is made up of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. So all these biomolecules again, you analyze, they are made up of carbon atom. See, let us take just one example only. I don't take much time. Let us take in our body cell, it is made up of carbohydrate. Now you try to analyze, try to recollect the formula of this glucose, C6H12O6. What is there in this C6? That means carbon atom is there. You understood it? No. Here what you need to understand is carbon ka main function is making the cell, making the biomolecules of the cell, so that the cell will be formed. And of course cell later it forms into tissue, and tissues it forms into organ, and this organs it will be again formed into organ systems, and thereby a whole body of the organism, the complete body of the organism will be formed. So this is a prime and important function of the carbon. Whereas the second function is also there. Now by the composition of this carbohydrates and also proteins, fats, cell is formed. It need to be maintained. How it will be maintained? It need food material, again carbon only required. That means carbon is a very important source. How this carbon dioxide, it is taken by the plants, uh, uh, and after it is taken by the plants in the presence of the sunlight, it undergoes a vital mechanism called as carbon fixation, that only we are calling as photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is also called as carbon fixation. Why? the gaseous, the atmospheric carbon dioxide, because atmosphere mein carbon dioxide it is present in form of gas CO2, or of course carbon monoxides also. But main, we are focusing on our main topic, main agenda is what it is present in form of carbon dioxide. Now this carbon dioxide it will be taken by the plants in form of gaseous form. Okay, when it is taken in gaseous form in the presence of the sunlight, this gaseous carbon dioxide it is converted into some organic substance, the organic molecule that is called as C6H12O6. That's why it is called as carbon fixation. The atmospheric carbon dioxide it is converted into the solid, that means one organic compound called as glucose, and this process it is called as photosynthesis or carbon fixation. Now let us come to the point. What is the point here? The first point is a formation of the cell in form of various biomolecules. For all you need carbon. Now second one is maintenance of the cell. Cell will be maintained in form of food. So by the food, so by the photosynthesis plant it is producing the food material, and this food material thoda it will use for its maintenance, and how much the complete amount of the food it is taken, it is synthesizing, that is called as gross primary productivity. Whereas let us take just example के लिए मैं बोल रहे हैं, just listen it. 10 grams of glucose it is produced by the plant, and this total 10 grams of the glucose that is produced, that is called as gross primary productivity. But for its maintenance it also need food material na? So let us take 5 grams were utilized by the plant. Now now for its respiration kitna it is used, that is gone, and remaining, that means 5 minus 5 is equal to, no, sorry, 10 minus 5 is equal to 5, and this 5 it is called as a net primary productivity. Hope you understand. So productivity, and productivity is again divided into gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. So gross primary productivity means the total amount of the food material that is produced by the plant body is called as gross primary productivity. Let us take, just for your understanding I'm telling, 10 grams, whereas in this 10 grams for its maintenance, for its body maintenance it used some 5 grams. That means 10 minus 5 is 5, and this 5 which is left in the plant body after the respiration, it is net primary productivity. You understood now? Now from now 5 grams of food material it is stored in the plant. Now one animal is there, let us take one goat or some sheep or some cow or some buffalo is there, it started eating on this 5 grams, that means net primary productivity. That is the, and the organisms which are feeding on this net primary productivity, then they are called as a secondary productivity. So productivity is broadly classified into primary productivity and secondary productivity. Primary productivity again divided into gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Now the organisms they cannot be able to utilize all the 10 grams, that means all the gross primary productivity, so they feeds on net primary productivity. That is the reason why secondary productivity do not include either gross or net. Hope you understand. And from herbivores it is going to carnivores, because some goat and some sheep it will be eaten by some tiger or any other carnivorous organism, and we personally are eating the plants. Okay, of course some are non-vegetarians also. So this is how we are eating this particular carbon dioxide in form of food by the photosynthesis, and our body is also maintained, and by excretion, and also by death, again the carbon dioxide is entering into the atmosphere. Hope you understand. So these are the functions of the carbon dioxide. Let us take how the carbon cycle it is taking place. Now here is a carbon cycle, and students this is a image, it is a very easy image, and I have taken this image directly from your NCERT book. So let us take, this is carbon dioxide that is present in the atmosphere. Now what happens, how this carbon dioxide it will be added to the atmosphere? See, by the respiration of the plants some carbon dioxide it will be released, and obviously the animals they are taking oxygen and they are releasing the carbon dioxide. and by that it is entering into the atmosphere. Now here some what you call fossil fuels, that means we are burning the wood, and also here what you call that means they converts into coal, and then here some petrol or some diesel also it may be, and this are sometimes kerosene oil also, and these fossil fuels are burning, and by this means this carbon dioxide is entering into the atmosphere. So here some carbon dioxide it is entering into this particular ocean. Reason is carbon has a tendency to absorb the atmospheric heat. That's why it may lead to global warming. That's why this excess carbon dioxide it will be taken by this particular water, and that particular dissolved carbon in form of bicarbonates and carbonates, and it will be taken by the phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons means the plant small organisms that are present, the plant part in the micro plants, they are called as planktons, and they utilize and they form photosynthesis, and that will be eaten by this particular fishes. And this all, when all these particular organisms they die, and again it results in the addition of the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That means first of all atmosphere, and from the atmosphere the carbon dioxide it will be taken by the plants, and from the plants it will be taken by the herbivores, and from the herbivores it will be taken by the decomposers, and when the organisms they are excreting or by the death, by the decomposition, again this particular carbon dioxide again it is reaching to the same place, that is atmosphere. And second path, carbon dioxide, if, it will be taken by the plants. When the plant it is dying or burning, it converts into coal or some petroleum, that means fossil fuels. And again these fossil fuels when they are used in form of vehicles, that means by bikes or cars, and again these particular fossil fuels again they are converting into carbon dioxide only. And when the organisms, these all organisms when they are dying, again this carbon dioxide it is released into the atmosphere. And atmosphere say the carbon, excess carbon it is taken by the ocean, and that will be taken by the planktons or some algae that is present in the water, and that will be taken by this fishes, and also some other organisms like molluscans or whatever. And again they also will die, because everyone are what I call, restricted to some certain lifespan only, no one is immortal. So after their death again this carbon dioxide it is released into the water only in form of carbonates and bicarbonates, or some carbon dioxide it is released into the atmosphere in form of carbon dioxide. So this is how the carbon cycle it takes place, and this is the image I have taken directly straightly from your NCRT book. Hope you understand. Now we are going to the next cycle. Students, sorry, if you have any further doubts you can ask me. Now let us take one more example. That means this is an example, that means carbon cycle is example I've taken to explain gaseous nutrient cycle. And for the next example I wanted to explain sedentary cycle, sedentary nutrient cycle. For this I have taken one example, that is phosphorus cycle. Now let us take as usually how carbon cycle we explained, this also we will explain like that only. First we will take the source, and second we will take the function, and third we will take the cycle. Now let us start. Source, what is the source of phosphorus? The actual and main source of the phosphorus is rocks, obviously rocks. Now this rocks slowly they undergoes withering. By withering of these particular rocks, the phosphorus it will be added into the soil or soil solution. That means the water that is present in the soil, that is called as soil solution. Now but ultimate source of the phosphorus is rocks. That means it is present in sedentary, because rocks are sedentary na? That's why it is called as a sedentary cycle, nutrient cycle. I think now you understood why phosphorus it is called as, I'm sorry, phosphorus cycle it is called as sedentary cycle, because rocks are sedentary, they can't be able to move. That's why it is called a sedentary cycle. When this rocks they undergoes withering, and by the withering this phosphorus it gets added into the soil. Now from the soil it will be taken by the plants. Of course I'll explain detail in the cycle, but hope you understand what is the source. Now let us take the function. Phosphorus is the main component of your nucleic acids, either DNA or RNA. Both are made up of what? Phosphorus only. How? Hope you remember. Let us take any nucleic acid, DNA or RNA, whatever you take. These are made up of three components. What are they? The first one is sugar, and the second one is phosphoric acid, and the next one is the hydrogen. Am I correct or not? And these hydrogens, they will sorry, I'm sorry, nitrogen bases. I'm really sorry for the mistake I did. So the first one is sugar, and the next one is phosphorus in form of phosphoric acid, and the next one is the nitrogen bases like adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine, which are connected by the hydrogen bonds. Now let us again analyze this particular composition. See, sugar, and the next one is what? Phosphoric acid. That only, for this point only I am explaining. So phosphoric acid, obviously it is the output of this phosphorus. So if the phosphorus is not there, our DNA and RNA is not there. If our DNA and RNA is not there, obviously there is no question, there is no point of transmission of characters from one generation to another generation, and there is no question of origin of the characteristics in the individual. So phosphorus is very, very, very important. Now the next one, it is also the chief component of our protoplasm, and of course this point I need not to tell you, it is a chief component of your biomembranes like plasma membrane, nuclear membrane, because you remember in the cell biology, while I'm explaining the structure of the plasma membrane, hope you remember in the plasma membrane the phosphorus, it is present in form of the lipophosphates. Hope you remember it. And it is also the part and parcel of this what do you call, bones and teeth. Okay, so these are the function of the uh, what do you call, phosphorus. Now let us take the cycle. Now if you take the cycle, and students, this is also the image I have taken straightly directly from your NCRT. Now these are the rocks. Now the rocks, they participate in the withering. That means slowly they gets dissolved. When these rocks are dissolving, now this phosphorus, it is entering into the soil. Now from the soil, this producers, here producers means plants you have to take. Plants means, I mean autotrophs. That means the organisms which can be able to prepare their own food material. That is called as producer. So from the soil, in the form of absorption. So by absorption, that means these autotrophs, these plants, they consisting of roots, na? So with the help of the roots, they suck this particular what do you call, phosphorus from the soil, and these producers, they utilize it for its what do you call, biomass production. And from that, the consumers, it may be cow or it may be buffalo or any other herbivore, that means from the producer it is transferred into the consumer, and from the consumer either by excretion or by what do you call, death. By excretion and also death, it enters into the detritivores. That means after excretion and after this death, what happens, the detritivores, they starts decomposing these particular dead bodies, and second route is also there. So this is, please follow my arrow mark, and 100% you will understand. From the producers, route number one is consumers, that means this herbivores, and by excretion and death, detrivores. Now here again you follow my arrow mark, and this is a second path. See, this is a first path and this is a second path. Producers, that means plants, they shed off their leaves or sometimes branches. For example, it rained very heavily, so some of the branches of this particular plant, they get breaks, they break down and they will fall off. And if for example after the dryness, after the leaves, they completely become dry and they fall off from the plants. So by this drying, this litter falls. That means the dry parts of the plant body will fall on the earth, and that is called as a litter, and they also undergoes decomposition. So these are the two ways by which the producers, they are releasing their parts into this decomposers, and by the decomposition, again this phosphorus, it is entering into the soil. Hope you understand. So this is how students, hope I am clear, but still if you ask me to explain again, I'll explain it. See, from the rocks it enters into the soil solution by withering. इधर तक समझ में है ना? This is step number one. From the soil solution, producers are absorbing it. इधर तक समझ में है ना? This is the second point. From the producers, it is entering into the consumers and thereby detrivores, or by directly by fall off, it is entering into the, it is available to the detritus. So this is root number one and this is root number two, and both the roots third point. And from the detritus, by the decomposition, again the phosphorus, it is entering into the soil. So this is the 4 points, only 4 points, the whole cycle it includes only 4 points. Hope you understand now. It is not like complicated like carbon cycle, it is so easy cycle. Now, let us take few points. Plants absorb phosphate from the soil in form of orthophosphate. See how from the soil plants are absorbing, that means producers absorbing in form of orthophosphate, and from the plants it is available to the animals by consuming the complete plant or by plant parts. And after the death of these particular animals, or of course even plants also, these decomposers, they are getting this particular phosphorus, and some phosphorus they are utilizing it for their own purpose, and some phosphorus it is added into the lithosphere. Sorry, lithosphere means again the soil. Hope you understand. Now the question is, why it is called as a sedentary cycle? This is a very very important question. Usually every student, almost every student, they will ask me why this phosphorus it is called a sedentary cycle. Sometimes the elements like phosphorus and also calcium, they reaches the sea. After reaching the sea water, they transform into rocks. Hope you understand now. That means after decomposition, the excess of this particular phosphorus, they get dissolved in the water, and this water, when it is running water, when it is entered into the sea, and in the seas this particular phosphorus and of course sometimes calcium also, they transforms themselves into the rocks, and these rocks are so longer time they remains like that only. They do not undergo withering so easily na? To dissolve a rock, it is not so easy. It takes lots of years of time. That's why they remains in the atmosphere like that only for so longer time. That's why it is called as sedentary cycle. Hope I think I cleared in a best way why the phosphorus cycle it is called as sedentary cycle. But still if you don't understand, ask me again, I'll explain. Now when these rocks, when these sedentary rocks they break, now the phosphorus again it is available to the sea plants and also the sea weeds or seaweeds, and thereby it will be available to the fishes and the seabirds. And these seabirds when they excrete, and it is called as guano, and this guano is also the richest source of the phosphorus. Hope you understand the phosphorus cycle. So today's class mein I explained one gaseous cycle, two sedentary cycle. To explain gaseous cycle, I explained carbon cycle. To explain sedentary cycle, I have taken phosphorus as an example. That means phosphorus cycle as an example. Hope you understand both the cycles. And what I left, what I did not explain, nitrogen cycle. But please read the mineral nutrient. The last topic of this mineral nutrition is nitrogen cycle. Then you will understand all the cycles, and rest of the cycles are not there in our syllabus, so you need not to worry. Hope you understood the class. Thank you so much.